Hello, welcome to HTML Fundamentals course. My name is Stanley and I'll be your instructor for this beginner course. Most of you might be wondering, why do you have to take this course? It's very necessary, especially when you are planning on becoming a web developer. So basically, everything you develop on the web will definitely have this HTML, because that is what allows the browser to render the content that you have put in your web pages. So without wasting much time, let's look at the outline of this course. I'm going to be taking them one step at a time, alright? And the first one we are going to start with, of course, discussing with you what a website is, and of course the web development layers. And I think I have to simply start without going through all of them, then coming back again to review each one after the other. So let's just discuss them as we come across each one of them. So a website is basically a collection of different web pages that are basically hosted on the same domain. So mostly you'll see something like google.com or facebook.com, as the case may be. Those are actual websites. So in the website you have a lot of other pages you can actually view. Okay, so I can also show you a quick example of what a website is. So using something like a BBC, bbc.com. So BBC is a website because it's hosted on this domain, and you have several other pages you can view. As you can see, you have home page, you have news page. So all of them are still hosted on the same domain. So that's actually what a website is. So, and to develop a website that will catch the user's interest, a website has been designed to have about 2 layers. I think I'm going to just break this like this so that it will be easier to understand. Website development is approached using the concept of layers. So layers mean the way that the contents are arranged and presented, and of course the interaction that you get from the content. So the very first layer is, of course, the content layer. This is actually used to structure the web page. Okay, and of course we make use of HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Okay, HTML is not a programming language, but rather, sorry about my spelling, but rather it is a scripting language, sort of. Sorry, it's a markup language. So meaning that it makes use of tags. Okay, so tags that are always in this form. You have the tag name, okay, like this, and it goes on and on like that. So tags are used to describe the content. It is from this content that the browser will be able to understand how to present or render that particular content for the users to see. Okay, so we are going to delve into that when we get to describing what elements are later. So basically, the first layer, like I said, is the content layer, and of course the second layer is the presentation layer. Okay, now the presentation layer is used to design or to add design so that your web page will look quite nice to the people. Just consider HTML, or better still the content layer, as the architectural design of a building, right? And or better still, the structuring, the civil engineering of a particular building. All right, so let's use it that way. But when the building is completed, that's the entire engineering process is done, you have to start furnishing the building to make it look nice. So this furnishing, we can map it to presentation layer, and this presentation layer makes use of we use CSS to design or to add design to our web page. Okay, so CSS stands for cascading style sheet. All right, now the last layer is the behavioral layer. I think I'm using British spelling. Behavioral layer, and this behavioral layer has a kind of interaction to the web page. So it's more like trying to give you that effect of clicking a button and getting a feedback dynamically. So the feedback is not fixed, but it depends on whatever content you have deposited or something like that, then it will be able to generate. Okay, so those are the actual things that happen. So when you click a button, it changes the color of a particular aspect of a web page. That could be the behavior that we are talking about. And of course, we use JavaScript, which is a programming language, a scripting language, and of course it has all the necessary programming components like control structures and the rest. So these are the three layers of web development: the content layer, the presentation layer, and of course the behavioral layer. All right, this tutorial, although is a fundamental tutorial, it is also required that you do some hands-on. So I'm going to be doing some things, and you will have to also repeat those things that I do. So, but before we continue, it's important you have access to a code editor, and I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code. If you do not have Visual Studio Code installed, I would advise you I think I have, I would advise you look it up, you Google it, okay, VS Code, and when you get it from the search engine result page, then you can now click on download. You will proceed. You choose your operating system, okay, whatever operating system you're using, then you can click on this to download. I already have this downloaded, so I am not going to do the downloading again. But for you, in case you don't have it already, you can go ahead and download. Okay, so having said that, the next important tool that you need is the browser. Meanwhile, the code editor allows you to deposit code that will be rendered on the browser. So you have to type in the code using the code editor, and when you are done and you want to preview your work to see how the users would get that as a feedback, then you have to make use of the browser. So there are several browsers you could use, but of course we have popular and recommended browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, Safari, and the rest of them. So you can use any of these modern browsers to preview your work. For me, I'm going to be using Firefox. So it's left for you to decide which one to use. However, anyone you concluded on using will also show similar results based on what we are going to be doing. Okay. Now the next things we are going to cover are what web page components are, and of course we'll take them bit by bit, starting with the boilerplate. Okay, so without much time, I'm going to switch to my screen just to make sure that you follow the steps. Now the first thing you're going to do, you can create a folder on your desktop. By the way, it's expected you know how to create folders by now. Okay, so you have to create a folder on your desktop, and when you're done, you can now proceed or continue the rest with me. So already I believe that you can see now my screen here. I have this folder which is demos. So you can create your own folder and give it whatever name that you have. All right. So regardless, in this folder, having installed my VS Code, there are two things you could do. The first thing, one of those things, sorry, there's either of two things you could do. So the first option is to right click, and if your context menu is displaying as mine, you are going to get show more options button, and you click on that button. You will see open with code. This is actually Visual Studio Code. So when you open it, it is going to launch a kind of VS Code. All right. It will launch the VS Code in this manner. Okay. So in case you don't have that, there is no problem. I'm going to show you another option. You proceed straight away to this bar for your path. That's the directory bar on your File Explorer. Then you click until it highlights all the text in the File Explorer as, kind of directory formatted text. You don't have to add to it. You don't have to right click, or better still, you can simply clear like this and you type CMD. So when you type CMD, it's going to open a command prompt using the same directory, and of course we are using this directory. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is to type code, then dot, space dot. It opens the same window again for you. So I don't need this command prompt showing up, and I don't need this also showing up. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do here is to generate a boilerplate. So talking about boilerplate is more like a set of code snippets that almost all the entire web pages must have. So there are similar code snippets that every page must have, and those the code snippet is referred to as the boilerplate. So to generate the boilerplate, first of all, you need to create a file. How do we create a file? In case you are not seeing this Explorer bar, you can usually toggle the Explorer from by clicking on this button here. So when you click, it toggles. That means it collapses it. Then when you click again, it expands. So that's how you're going to get this, in case you're not seeing it for the first time. So now you can see it. Each time you come over here, you take your mouse over to the Explorer bar, you are going to see some kind of menus or icons that will pop up. So I'm going to I would want you to pay more attention to this particular one. This kind of file icon with a plus on the bottom right. So when you take your mouse over it, when you hover, you're going to see what the name is. So this is where you create a new file. So I'm going to simply click on this to create my new file. At this point, I will start typing the very first file I'm going to create, index, then .html. Always remember the .html because that's the extension of our HTML web page. So when you're done, you press enter key, then it is going to show you where you can start generating your boilerplate. Now, to generate our boilerplate, I am going to start by simply typing exclamation mark. So you can simply find a way on your keyboard to type exclamation mark. Mine is by holding the shift button and of course typing the 1 value like that. So it gives me exclamation mark. The moment you get exclamation mark, you can simply select this one here and it will populate the rest for you. So you should see something like this. Now, best practice, what I normally do, I do not like the idea of always scrolling horizontal wise, especially when the content on the page is quite wider than the page itself. So what I usually do is to wrap whatever text that it is, so I don't have to scroll all the way back and forth. So how do I do this? You go to view and of course click wardrobe, and that will remove the horizontal bar that you should have used to scroll left and right. Okay, so I can see this particular web page, right? This boilerplate. Now let's describe every part of it. Okay, now here, this is the doctype. It's not a HTML element, but of course this is showing that the type of document that we are using is HTML5. So always make sure that this is the very first line on your web page. Okay, the next one is the HTML element. So it starts here, okay, and of course it ends here, right? So now there is something you have to understand. I need to make this clear to you. Okay, I need to make this clear. Now, this HTML has this kind of thing here, which is known as an attribute. So an attribute, we are going to deal with them later, but basically what it is that it is more like a way to add additional information to a particular element. So it usually comes of the form, the name of the attribute, then equals, and of course the value of the attribute must be enclosed within either double quotation mark or single quotation mark, but make sure that after the equal sign that you have this enclosed in it. Very important. Okay, now within the HTML elements, I'm going to make sure I format this. Within the HTML elements, you have two elements that are in neighborhood to one another, to each other. So you have the head element. You notice that we normally open like this by using exclamation mark, angle brackets. So these are angle brackets. Then you have the tag name inside it. Then you have also the angle bracket closing it. But of course, the beginning of the angle bracket has a /. So basically this is a closing head tag. Okay, and this is the opening head tag. Likewise the body, the opening and closing tag. Okay, all right, now we go again to expand the head. The head contains some information which are very, very vital. Okay, this allows you to render the content using more characters, so you can go as far as using currency symbols as long as you are using the appropriate Unicode for that. So we have two major examples of character sets. We have the ASCII and we have the Unicode. So the Unicode UTF-8 is actually an extraction of the Unicode, and it allows you to use more characters. So to the extent of using Chinese language and symbols and things like that. Okay, so that's what you use this chart set meta element to do. Now this element doesn't have a closing element, it's simply a self-closing element, and anything within the head doesn't render on the browser except for the title that renders on the tab of your browser. So I'm quickly going to show you what that means. All right, now as you can see here, let me show you. I think I need to open this on my Firefox. Yeah. So now I believe you can actually see what's going on here. If you look closely, you'll notice this document that is here. So this particular document is coming from the title. Remember, we have a title there. So it's actually coming from this title, right? So you have to take note of this particular aspect of it. So the title is the only thing in the header, in the head section, that is rendered on the tab of your browser, not on the browser window itself. So this is very important. So what this does basically is to allow you to view the content of this web page on any screen size. Excuse me. Whether you are using a phone, a mobile phone, a smartphone, an Android, a tablet, or a laptop, or a wider screen, whatever screen, then it will have to adjust to be responsive to the screen size. Okay, so that's actually what happens here. All right. Okay, now having said this, let's consult our screen, our board again, to know the next thing to do. So the very next thing is to talk about the HTML elements and of course the attributes. Talking about the HTML elements and attributes, it's also important we deal with the body. The body is where whatever that must be rendered on a web page, anything that must be rendered here, okay, is actually what will be contained in the body. And we have to address that issue. The very first thing we are going to do is to look at what an element is and of course what an attribute is, right? So it's also important I do something here. I have to show you something because I need you to get this right. Okay, so now an element is usually written in this way. You have a tag, opening and close tag, and of course you have content within it. So this is the opening tag, this is the closing tag, and of course within you have the content. So this all together is referred to as an element. Okay, so an element is used to structure a particular content. It means that whatever the name of the element is will determine how the structure will be rendered. So, and that will of course take us to what default or preset HTML styles are later on. But we have to of course look at just a few examples of what elements are. Right? But building on this, it's also important to know what an attribute is. So an attribute comes in this way. You have the attribute name. First of all, the attribute has to lie in the opening element. And of course, you have the attribute name, then equals. Then you enclose the value within either double speech marks or single speech marks. That's what an attribute is. So an attribute is more like adding extra features to a particular element. And we are going to see how all of those things work later. Okay. Now, we also have comments. Before we continue with the comments, let me just give you an example of what an element and attributes are. Okay, so basically I'm going to simply give you something like a H1. So I can now say hello. This. And if I go to my browser to preview, I'm going to say hello world on the browser. Just like I said earlier, that whatever you type in the body is automatically rendered in the body of the browser. But whatever that is contained in the title, which is part of the head section, is always seen at the top of your browser. So these are the two things you have to bear in mind. Okay, every other thing on the head section cannot be visible anywhere on the browser except for the title that can only be seen on the tab of the browser, right? Okay, so having said that, we need to consult our board to look at what a comment is. So a comment basically is more like, it does two things. It means that whatever that is commented cannot be rendered on the browser. So commenting allows you to either retain a set of code that you don't want to lose because you might need them somehow, sometime, but at the same time you do not want it to be rendered on the browser. So say for instance, I do not want this H1 to be rendered on the browser. I can comment it. And how do you comment? You have open angle bracket, exclamation mark, 2 hyphens, and of course at the end of the content you want to comment, you close by using double hyphens and closing angle brackets. So you take note of the syntax, otherwise it won't work. So let's look at our browser. You know, we had this before now. So when we refresh, we are not going to see it again. That doesn't mean it's deleted from the page, no. But whatever that is being commented, it is automatically ignored by the browser. So it's not going to be rendered. That's basically what that means. Okay. So, there is also a scenario whereby you want to describe certain sections of your code. Say for instance, I want to actually describe that I am simply greeting my users, okay, or greeting my viewers, the viewers of this web page. So this will help whoever that will take after me as the web developer to be able to know what each section does, and they can be more creative with certain things or certain behaviors they want to add to the web page. So this is actually very essential. You take note of that. Okay, so the next one we are going to work with is to talk about the preset styles, all right, or default styles. every element, remember, every element of HTML has certain ways that they could be rendered. So first of all, let me go ahead and refresh this so you see this, right? They have certain ways, certain requirements of how they want to be rendered. For instance, I want to actually have another element which is called a paragraph element for now, and I'm simply going to generate a random paragraph. Okay, now the text hello world and whatever this means will not look the same way. So let's preview it on the browser. If I refresh, you can see that hello world comes naturally bold, but this paragraph is not bold. So it means that this element h1 has a way that is being interpreted by the browser in especially when it comes to presenting the content that it encloses. Likewise, this has a different way of rendering its content. So these different ways of rendering contents based on the various elements are called default or preset styles. So it means that by default, every browser has a way of understanding how to present any kind of element given to it, as long as we have not added any custom styling using CSS. All right, so those are what we refer to as preset styles, and you have to also be aware of those styles moving forward. So the next aspect we are going to talk about is to work with tables, HTML tables, then after tables, images and lists. So I'm going to be a little bit faster now because I've technically explained the basics. So for HTML tables, I'm going to create another file called tables.html. And you remember how we generated a boilerplate. My title is going to be table. I think I'm going to rename this as table instead of tables. Right. And I'm going to preview. It is called table now and not index. Okay. So as you can see again, the tab is displaying table because that's what my title is displaying. So now a table element is actually written in this way. You start by typing the table element itself. Then within this table element, we have opening and we have closing. Within the opening and closing tags, you create a row using tr. Okay, so within the tr, this is actually my first row. So say I need 2 rows. I'm going to create tr again. All right, so within the first tr, I need 2 contents. But of course, I need to have a heading, and of course, I also need to have data let's say for instance, I want name and gender. So I'm going to use th, means table heading, th, and I'm going to use name. Then still within the same table row, I create another cell which is going to be th. I'll use gender. Alright, the next row I will simply create the actual name by using table data, that is TD. I can now use John Doe, and John Doe is of course a male, right? Okay, so I'll refresh, and of course I can see this. However, you are not seeing this as being more like a table. There is one more thing we need to do just to have that mindset that we are working on a table. You go to the table element, that's the beginning, the opening element, the opening tag, and you introduce an attribute called border, and you can make it 1, 2, whatever. This describes the border width. Okay, so if you make it 2, it's going to be actually wider than or thicker than the one than when it is 1. So let's refresh and we can see the table border applied, right? Okay, we can go ahead and add more values, more rows to the table. So I can make this to be Jane Doe, and Jane Doe is female. So come back here, refresh it, then our table is being populated as we add more values, right? So there is also something else we need to do when we are talking about table. Every table is ideally recommended that you have to give it a caption. So a caption doesn't have any table row. It cannot be enclosed within a table row. Okay, you can make this caption to be anything, names, or better still, student records. Okay, so when we do this, now this caption is going to help the screen readers. I won't explain much about that, but always know that it's best practice to always include captions to your web page. So we'll go here, we'll refresh, we can now see the caption over here. There is something you will have to notice. The TH, the content that are applied using TH are usually center aligned. So this is also another important aspect of default or preset style that is applied with TH. Unlike the TD that renders just left aligned for the contents. So the TH is usually center aligned. Okay, so let's go back again. Apart from this recommendation, with regards to caption, it is also recommended that every table must come with 3 sections. The first section is going to be the T-head. So T-head is going to bundle up everything you want to make the heading of your page. So I have bundled this up within the TH. Think I need to separate them. Okay, so as you can see within T-head, I have the first T row, table row, which contains the table headers. right? Make sure it is always in this aspect. The T-head and the T-body, T-footer are specifically meant for groupings, but do not have any syntactic implication or any semantic implication on the web page. They have semantic implication, but not syntactic implication. All right. So now you have this whole thing enclosed just like that. The next one, the next section of grouping is T-body. So the T-body means every rows that you have should be included in there, right? So you have to include all the rows that you have, like this first record, second record of the student I have included here. Now we have T foot, which is the last grouping. All right. Again, T foot is going to have another row. All right. And we have another TD. We have two TDs. And the very first one is going to be maybe something like footer 1 for now. And the next one is going to be footer 2. So let's look at our browser to see what it gives us. You can see you have footer 1, footer 2. Now to conclude this lesson, it's also important I show you that we can use only one TD. Okay. Now look at this. When we use one TD, the idea is that we want to merge these two so that they become one. Why? Because the table is structured to take two columns. But when you are now using one TD, you are simply asking the table to use one column. So we can actually expand this TD to cover the two columns. So how do we do that? By introducing what is called col span. The col span is going to be 2 because there are two columns. So I can now make it maybe I use copyright like that and make it 2025. All right, reserved. Now let's preview on the browser and we can now see that it covers the entire space for the two columns. All right, because I spanned it across two columns. Okay. All right. You can also span across multiple rows. Let's say, for instance, I have extra TDs or TRs, right? So maybe I have something like 2 TRs. Now, there is something we want to do. We actually want, let me expand this so it will make more sense for you to understand. So expanding this, I can have something like TD and another TD. I can have something like A, I have B, and here I have a similar thing. I will just quickly copy. So we need to make an impression. So we have C and we have D. So when we get to our browser, we are going to see something like this. Now, the idea is that I want to merge A and C, these rows. That is because A is on a separate row, C is on a separate row, which are next to each other. So to merge A and C together, I am going to use the row span version of attribute. Okay, so and I'm going to use it where A is, and of course delete the D, the table data or the table cell that contains C. Okay, so let's do that. This is the table cell that contains C. I'm going to simply delete it. And when we go back to our browser, I want to implement my row span on A, so it will cover 2 rows. That's this row and this row, right? So I will go to where A is, the very TD that contains A, the opening element, the opening tag. I will now type row span, not co-span. I'll make it 2. Now let's preview and see whether everything works as planned. So as you can see, everything has worked as planned. All right. So this is it about table. Let's continue with the next one on the list. We have the images element. So first of all, I'm going to simply look up an image of rose flower. Okay. And this rose flower, I'm simply going to download one of it. Maybe this one. I can go ahead and download the image. So I'm going to download the image and name it rose. It's downloaded already. So I'm going to copy it to my folder. Now, any image you want to include in your folder you want to include in your web page must also be copied to your web page. Okay. So I'll clear up everything. And of course, I'm looking at this. I will, for the sake of this, just trying to make everything separate. I'm going to create an image element, image file, HTML file, generate a boilerplate, and the title should be image. I will have to wrap and come over here. We can now go to the browser to preview, just to continue. It is actually image, and you can see what we have on the title is displayed. Now the very next thing we are going to do is to include the image. How do we do that? We use img element. This is another kind of element that doesn't have opening and closing elements. So it simply has opening, and that is it. It is called a self-closing element and not an opening and close element. Okay. So there are 2 attributes that are recommended in every image. The src, where you specify the path of the image. That means the name of the image and of course where it is located. Okay. To start typing this, simply type the dot. If your image is within that location, dot, then /, it will give you options to select from. So I have this image. I will simply click on it. And of course, this is the Alt. Alt helps the screen readers to be able to understand what an image is, because they cannot see. Those people that are blind but rely so much on their assistive technology to read web content. So now here I have the Alt. The Alt is going to be something like rose flower. So whenever the AT, assistive technology, reads, or screen reader reads, gets to where this image is, it simply reads it as rose flower. So giving the user this view that they are actually looking at a rose flower. Okay, so now let's preview this to see whether it's going to be displayed. So as you can see, it displays brilliantly well. Let's continue with the next one, which is the list. We have three types of list: ordered, unordered, and of course description. Okay, so I will quickly create a new file and name it lists.html. Okay, and generate my boilerplate and make it list. Right? Okay. Let's preview this. Instead of images, I have list. So this appears here on the title bar. Okay. Now let's continue again. The very first list we are going to look at is the ordered list. So with that ordered lists are the lists that have numerical hierarchies, meaning that you want to identify stages or maybe recipes or things like that, whereby the preceding values are always going to affect the next values or the next stages. Okay, so when you have stage by stage process of doing things, that's where you apply ordered list 1, 2, 3, 4, or Roman numeral, as the case may be. So how do we start off this? We're going to use OL. Okay, that is ordered list. Then within the OL, we are going to identify each item using LI, meaning list item. Okay, I can make this item number 1. Okay, then I have the next one is item number 2, and if we preview this in the browser, we are going to see rendered 1, 2, meaning item number 1, item number 2 in that hierarchy. Okay, so what if we want to change this to maybe Roman numeral? We can actually do that, or ABCD, we can do that. So we can do that using an attribute called type on this OL, not on LI. So you can type and make it maybe 1. 1 is usually the default, but maybe you make it small letter A, as the case may be. When we render, instead of 1, 2, is going to be AB, as you can see. So if you want Roman numeral, capital or lowercase, you can also, do similar things by choosing either capital letter I or small letter I, and for capital letter B, A, you can also do that for capital lettered items. Okay, so the next before we continue, I actually want to sectionalize this and make it H1 to be types of list. Okay, by the way, we have H1 up to H6. So H1 is the largest, HC is the smallest. Okay, so I have H2. It's always ideal to include only a single H1 in your page because it will have an effect, but you can include as multiple H2s up to H6 in your web page. So H2 is going to be ordered list. Okay, and another H2 is going to be unordered list. Right. Another H2 is going to be description list. Remember I told you there are 3 types of lists we are going to work on. So let's preview this on the browser and you can see everything rendered. We don't have anything for unordered list yet, but we are about to create that. So below this H2 for unordered list, how do we start with ordered list? While ordered list begins with OL, we are going to start this one with UL. Okay, and they actually, make sense with the same LI, that's list element. Okay, so we have this list element. We can have a orange, maybe list of fruits, something like that, and another list item. We can have apple. We can have apple. All right, and when we render on the browser, we are going to see it in bullet points. Okay, so that's how unordered list usually appears. The last list type we are going to work on is the description list. So description list is used when you have terms to describe. Consider that you are designing a web page that gives a definition of terms, some terminology. So you can use something like this. Okay, so assuming I have something like a WHO, that's World Health Organization, and of course I want I want to have this kind of terminology list whereby students get to know the full meanings of certain abbreviations. So I can use description list for that kind of thing. Or better see, you have definition of terms that you want to define, maybe atoms, what an atom is, and you want to do that kind of definition. You use definition list. How do we start? We begin by typing the description list, DL. All right, and within the DL contains items that you want to actually describe. So we have the very first one is going to be DT, that is description term. I'm going to use WHO for the sake of this lesson, and the next one is going to be DD, that is description details, and I will type the full meaning of that. World Health Organization. So let's preview this in the browser and you can see how it is rendered. So you have the description list and you have this one coming here. Okay, so I will have another one just to make sure we separate them together. You have DT again, maybe you have AU, meaning African Union, and you have DD, which will give us the full meaning. And let's review on the browser, and as you can see, they all render in a similar way. Okay, so I guess we're done with the list. Let's look at anchor, and of course we deal with audio and video. Those are the last things we are going to deal with, okay, for the sake of this lesson. All right, the very first thing we will look at here is the anchor. Okay, now what I'm going to do is that while on this page, I am going to simply build an anchor that refers me to table, to image, and of course to list pages. These are different pages. Okay, so how do I create this anchor that refers me to those pages? Above just the very first thing you see on each page, I want it to appear in this way. I want to create an unordered list, that is OL, and within the OL I'm going to have my list items, and these list items are going to be for each page. So say for instance, this particular one, of course, that is index. I'll make it home. Okay, but before that we need to create an anchor. An anchor is more like an element that allows you to connect a different page to the existing one, so that when you click that particular link, it takes you to the page that it is connected to. So let's use an anchor element, which is A, to start with. So an anchor element has this attribute href, which will contain the actual path to the file that you want to link to. So I want to start with index. That is the home page, and the anchor text is going to be what you see, because if I preview this on the browser, I preview index on the browser, I'm not going to see any text there, but rather I'm seeing this. Oh, sorry, I also use OL instead of UL. Sorry. So here you can see the bullet sign is created, of course, but because the anchor doesn't contain any value, you can't see anything there. So to make sure a value is seen, I will add an anchor text, which is going to be home in this case. So when we go back and refresh, we are going to see this. Okay, so when you click, it links you back to yourself, because we are still in the index menu page. So I'm going to copy this 3 times to reflect the 3 other pages, and of course I'm going to change this to table, and the next one is going to be image, and the last one is going to be list. So of course I'll make this table, that's the text, and this is going to be image, and this is going to be list. And when I'm done, I'm going to save, go to my browser and preview this. So as you can see, moving from here gives me back the same value, but if I go to table, it takes me to table, but I can't connect back again. So I need to have this kind of menu in all the pages. Okay, so this actually a walk away. I'm going to simply copy this and paste it at the beginning of each page, just below the body. Just below the body, with nice formatting. And come here with good formatting. so that I can easily connect to each page. Right, so now let's go back and refresh. When I refresh, I can go to home, go to table. Of course, this is the table, as you can see, and go to image. This is the image page, and of course, go to list page. This is the list page. All right, so that's actually it about using Anchor. It helps you to link one page to another, and that's why you see the effect on the BBC website I showed you earlier. We could move from the home page to the news page, and of course still maintaining the same domain. So this is what an anchor element helps you to do. Okay, so I'm going to get just a few audio, and of course a video to demonstrate the next set of lessons. Okay, so let me just quickly do that in the background. Okay, so now I think I'm back, and we can now continue. I have included 2 more files to my list of files. This is a video file, and this is of course an audio file. So because we'll be starting with the audio file, let me quickly show you how this actually works. So I'm going to create another file called audio.html and generate a boilerplate. Make it audio, and of course I normally like to do this. So how do we include an audio file in a web page so that we can play? Maybe you want to be publishing your podcast on your website and you want to have a way around it. How do we do this? We can simply use the audio element, and within the audio element we include the audio file. Okay, so I have my audio file ending in .mp3, not mp4. mp4 is for video. So ending in mp3, I have included an audio file. Now there's something I want us to observe. Let's preview this on the browser. So going to this, I'm going to change this to audio. So you can see that we don't seem to have anything going on here. Right, so let's add some certain things to the audio. I'm going to add this particular thing called controls, and let's try and preview to see if this works. So as you can see, the controls brings out the audio whereby you are allowed to play it and all of those things. Okay, so if you play it, you're going to hear the sound of the audio. So that being said, I'm going to show you how to also include a video. Okay, so I will go ahead and create a video HTML file page, generate a boilerplate, name it video, and of course come here and use the video element with a source attribute, whereby I can now take note of my video. Now let's preview the video again and see whether we are going to get a similar result from the audio. Now you can see a still image that you can't even play in the rest. So for us to play this, I need to also add controls. Okay, So having added controls, can go here, you can see I'm allowed to play, and of course all of those. So that's it, everyone, and we've come to the end of this HTML fundamentals tutorial. At this point, you are actually good to go with HTML, but there is also much to learn. So let me get your feedback about this particular lesson, and what might interest you for me to create a video on in my subsequent tutorial. So for now, if you've not subscribed, please kindly subscribe and share so that it will benefit others that you might think of. So you're not the only one that want to switch career, but there are still several other people that might want to switch career. So distributing this by sharing and liking will help us in what we do, and we of course help us to reach more people that will be needing this kind of skill. So I believe it's a good start. Once again, have a nice time. Bye.